What's going to be the next bronzer? The next category of product that you have us thinking we just are not eligible to put on because our skin doesn't function as skin. Hello YouTube, it's itskaygee.yt video. I am restarting this video, just restarting. So I already put on my foundation. I used the Maybelline Fit Me in shade 368 Deep Golden because I got tan the other day. I'm going with the LA Girl Pro Concealer. Today we are talking about bronzer and racism. I'm sure you're wondering what those two things have to do with each other, but I'm about to tell you. So, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but a couple of years ago, Miss Jacqueline Designer herself took to her channel to show us her putting on a bronzer made by B.F.A. Now, this was a monumental moment because prior to this bronzer being created by B.F.A., Black people didn't have any bronzer options, and by any, I mean any. There were absolutely zero. Shortly after she made that video and called out a bunch of other brands for not having any bronzers for dark-skinned people, a couple of companies put out some bronzer for us. They gave us a shade or two. They said, here you go, shut up. And we flopped. The Black community started to purchase bronzer because, we could. I believe myself to be a little bit darker than Jackie. So I was skeptical. I said, if Jackie is the darkest shade, then there's nothing for me. And so I started to look for darker than Jackie skinned beauty gurus. And this is when I discovered Nima Tang and Too Much Mouth. Nima Tang made a video in which case she was trying on the bronzers that came out around this time, companies' first attempts at caring about Black people's existence, even though it was just for their monetary gain. I mean, still. And she would put them on, and they would be way too light for her, and then we would all just kiki in the comments about how these companies still weren't making anything for us. Now, I'm not as dark as Nima Tang. As I had learned, taking makeup tips from people lighter than me was just not gonna work. So I said, thanks, Jackie, I'm glad you like it, but it doesn't look like it's for me. Alright, so this was the late 20-teens, maybe 2016, 17 is when this was happening, so not billions of years ago. Please don't think that these companies care about us, because thanks to Pull Up or Shut Up, a movement by Jackie Aina and some others telling makeup brands, hey, tell us how many Black employees you have at the top. Thanks to Pull Up or Shut Up, we see that these brands do not acknowledge our existence. They don't hire anybody that looks like us. They don't make anything for people that look like us. They don't. Pretty sure they don't even want us to be here. Yeah. So I can't tell what I look like right now. The way the lighting is working, I just absolutely can't tell. So y'all let me know in the comments down below if I look crazy or if I look great, because I have no clue. I'm using the KVD Locket Powder in Translucent. A couple of months ago, it came to my attention that Makeup Revolution had made bronzers. They had multiple lines of bronzers with multiple shades dark enough for Black people. But let me explain to you why I never went out and bought that Makeup Revolution bronzer. Because I didn't know what bronzer was. Because I did not know what to do with it. Because I had never worn bronzer before. No one that looked like me had ever worn bronzer before, and I just didn't know what to do with bronzer. I took to the internet to find out, what is bronzer? What am I supposed to do with this? Because I don't know. And because bronzer, prior to a few years ago, was never made for anyone my shade, the vast majority of the videos out there that discuss bronzer are made by white people. Okay? Which is fair. Fine and fair, it makes perfect sense. How are Black people supposed to make bronzer videos without being able to buy bronzer? So I was watching these bronzer tutorials and these bronzer explanations and just getting more and more confused, because they would say, oh, bronzer is something that you use to warm up the face. And I would say, isn't that what blush is for? And they would say, you can put bronzer here and here. And I would say, isn't that what contour is for? And the final explanation I would hear, for when people were like, isn't that what blush and contour is for? The final explanation I would hear is, bronzer warms up your face, as if you've been in the sun. It makes you look sun-kissed. It makes you look tan. Okay, keyword tan. That confused me even more because black people don't tan. That is what I told myself in that time. I told myself black people don't tan. So what honestly am I expected to do with this product? Why would I tell myself that black people don't tan? Let's get into it. So, if you are black, if you are dark-skinned black especially, I'm sure that you have at least a little bit of experience avoiding the sun. Perhaps it was field day one day, perhaps you were doing PE outside, and you would make extra special careful care to run in the shade instead of the sun. Why do I keep saying black people don't tan? Because that's what I believed at the time. There's this adage, this common saying, phrase that black people hear and accept, right? And with being black and anti-blackness, right? And learning to love yourself and your skin tone, there are certain things you can say to yourself where it's very obvious that you have some work to do. It's very obvious that you're not too keen on yourself and you need to work on that. Like, for example, wishing you looked like something or someone else. Everything that we need to do isn't always so obvious. For example, there are some things about black people that we accept as fact. You know, like maybe at some point in time, people just accepted it as fact that black people were lazy, and so they thought of themselves as lazy, and they never really considered, like, I'm not lazy, I can do whatever I want, I work really hard every day. They just said, well, everyone says black people are lazy, and I'm black, so I must be lazy, and that's all that there is to it. As time has gone on, we've been able to analyze that statement and say, no, black people aren't really lazy, that's just a racist saying, and you don't have to believe that. Again, I can't tell what I look like. If I look crazy, I'm sorry. But there are some statements that haven't been analyzed yet, and one of them was, black people don't tan, we burn. Another way of saying that is to say when you go in the sun, you just get darker, you just burn, you get blacker, you blacken, you darken. There is no tan. The word tan is not and never was associated with us. So I was confused by all of these makeup tutorials telling me that bronzer would make me look tan, because I don't tan. As far as I was aware at the time, black people don't tan. That's not a thing that we do. That's not possible. So if this makeup is supposed to make me tan and tanning isn't eligible to me, what am I supposed to do with this product? Looks like nothing. I guess that's why they never made bronzer for black people in the first place, because we don't tan. That right there is the issue then, isn't it? Maybe, and I'm not these makeup companies, so I wouldn't know, but maybe these makeup companies never made any products for people that look like me, because they said, well, how are we supposed to make them look sun-kissed? Black people don't get sun-kissed, they just burn. They just turn dark as charcoal, they literally turn black, they get to be so ugly and dark and disgusting. How are we supposed to make a sun-kissing product for them when they don't get sun-kissed? They just get ugly. How are we supposed to do that? We don't. Black people, they just don't wear bronzer. That's it. Perhaps that is the same line of thinking that I had is the same line of thinking that went through some of these executives' brains. Perhaps I am not the only one who was out there thinking black people just aren't meant to wear bronzer because we don't tan, because we just don't get sun-kissed. That's not a thing for us. But in believing that I don't tan, I didn't really know like what a bronzer was supposed to do for me. You know, they say bronzer warms up your skin. White skin has been studied. White skin is the basis of beauty right now, being a Caucasian person, and even more so being a tan Caucasian. You guys have kind of ditched the desire to be pale, and now you want to be tan. So tan white people have been studied. Makeup companies have looked at them and said, what about their skin makes them pretty? Well, they're tan. What does that mean? It means that they're kind of orange. And we noticed that when pale people spend enough time in the sun, they have the potential to get kind of orange too. So what if we made a shade of powder that was kind of orange that gave people the appearance of having been in the sun without having to actually go into the sun? It would be great. People would love it because it would make them more beautiful. It would bring them closer to the ideal version of whiteness, and everything would work out just fantastic. Now, when it came to making bronzing products for us, our skin is not studied. Because no one cares about what's beautiful for us, because we already are not regarded as beautiful. It's like it's like putting lipstick on a pig in their minds, I imagine. Like, what's the point? So since we are not regarded as beautiful, we're not studied. So I guess no one noticed that we in fact don't just burn. We don't just turn into charcoal. We don't just start cooking and roasting when we step out into the sun. Actually, our skin gets warmer just like yours does. Maybe instead of turning orange, it turns a little bit more of like a reddish brown, but it warms up. It warms up and we tan, just like normal people with human skin. Crazy concept, I know. I feel like I'm not doing this video justice, and I really want to, but it's just so hard for me to articulate. Because I thought, I'm gonna stop doing makeup for a second and try and just speak. Because I thought I couldn't get tan. Because I thought that Black people just burn. Again, that's one of those internalized racism statements that's not so easy to detect, because everybody says it, everybody thinks it, everybody knows it. It's regarded as a fact. This is just the way it is. Black people don't tan, we just get darker. And if we get dark enough, we just start to burn to the point where we look like charcoal. That's facts. There's nothing else to it. That is what I believed so strongly. It didn't register to me as an issue because I wasn't wishing to be someone else. I wasn't wishing to have green eyes and, loose curls. I was as I was. I was just confused about what I was. And it's that confusion, that internalization of a racist statement that Black people don't tan because our skin is inherently different than white people's skin. Other than the melanin in it, it's got other differences to the point where we don't even tan, we just burn. That's just how it works. Black people just cook in the sun, they just get darker. I don't know. Because of me internalizing that racist idea, I didn't really understand how bronzer could ever be made for someone as dark as me. And I feel like the companies felt the same way. I feel like the companies might have at some point taken a second to look at us and say, oh, should we make some bronzers dark enough for them? And they might have said no, because how are we supposed to do that? We can't just make them a dark orange, because that doesn't make sense. They don't turn orange ever. And of course, our skin wasn't studied. They didn't look at us to see what actually happened because they didn't care, because we weren't regarded as beautiful anyway. So it was the point of making makeup and beautifying products for us. Because they didn't care, they didn't study our skin to see that it does actually warm up in the sun just like everybody else's skin. They didn't study that. They just saw us getting darker and took that as all it was. And being Black, you get kind of used to being regarded as less than others for reasons unbeknown to you, reasons that are not fair, and reasons that you can't do anything about. But you get used to being passed over for the job. You get used to walking into the store and not seeing the makeup for you. You get used to, Band-Aids being tan and nude being a color that is just absolutely not nude on you. You get used to, they have a nude option of everything. Nude camisoles, nude bras, nude shoes, nude lips. But when you ask for something in brown, it's suddenly like they've never even heard of what that pigment is. You get very used to your skin tone being looked over. And you get very used to looking in special places to find what you need, because the mainstream typically isn't going to have your back. It's only recently that the epitome has hit me. That in fact I don't burn. In fact, I have never cooked. I have never turned into a nice, freshly cooked dinner for a vulture. Even Black people who are way darker than me, like Nima Tang, she's not burned. She's just dark-skinned. And even in having dark skin, her skin is a very warm tone. It wasn't until senior year of high school, after senior year, summer, I went on a trip to Florida with my friend. We spent the day on the beach. We both got very dark. She got what she would call tan. I got what I would call dark. Right? And I went into the mirror of the hotel and I looked at myself after this day on the beach. And I remember lifting up my leg onto the counter and looking at how dark it was, and I was wearing a white swimsuit, so there was contrast there that made it look even darker. And just looking at how dark I had gotten and liking it. I remember thinking that my skin looked very warm, it had like a healthy glow to it, and I just wanted to shower and put on some oil and really accentuate how dark I was, because I thought it looked very nice. And that was the first time. Why am I putting so much care into these eyebrows? That was the first time that I ever really liked being darker. You know, like I got to be comfortable with the shade that I was in middle school. And early high school, I got to be okay with getting darker, even though it wasn't my preference. It was just like, it's something that's gonna happen and I'm just gonna have to deal with it. But that, 18 years old, was the first time that I was allowed to enjoy getting darker. White people love tanning. Some of y'all literally put your lives at risk to go get a tan. Y'all love tanning. And it wasn't something that I was able to appreciate for myself until I was 18 years old. And it is something that a lot of dark girls still are not able to appreciate for themselves. It is something that a lot of dark girls still don't acknowledge as a thing. You know, it's only now, years later, that I even realized what I did was tan. I just thought I got darker. I just thought that I was burning a little. And, yeah, that's where the racism in the title comes in. Internalized racism within myself led me to believe my skin doesn't do something that my skin in fact does do. This brow powder is too dark, but I've already gotten this far, so we're just gonna commit. I wonder what else I had within myself. Internalized racism, or internalized colorism, or just incorrect beliefs, insecurities about my skin tone. I wonder what else I have within myself that needs to be uncovered. I also wonder, what's going to be next for makeup? What's going to be the next concealer, the next foundation, the next BB cream, the next CC cream? What's going to be the next nude lipstick? What's the next transition eyeshadow shade? The next contour palette? The next highlighter? What's going to be the next bronzer? What is the next thing that we're going to have to beg the makeup industry to give us? What else are we going to have to remind you guys that we exist with? What else are you going to use to show us that you don't care about us? Show us that you haven't studied us? To show us that you ignore us? What's going to be the next, like, extremely orange or extremely red foundation shade that wouldn't make any sense if you tried it on one single black person? But of course you have no black people in your office, so who would have been able to tell you that? What's going to be the next bronzer? The next category of product that you have us thinking we just are not eligible to put on because our skin doesn't function as skin. What's the next lie they're going to feed us? What's the next time you're going to find to be able to ignore us? What's next? What's after this, you know? You couldn't keep us in slavery as slaves, so you kept us as indentured servants. You couldn't keep us as indentured servants, so you kept us as prisoners. What's next? What's next? When does this battle end? Does it end? I feel like it does not end. And I feel like if I can be this old and finally discover that my skin is in fact skin, the fight is never going to end. I challenge the makeup industry to, first of all, hire some black people. These problems would be so easy to avoid if y'all would just hire some black people. I hope that moving forward, I can find all of the internalized racism and the internalized issues that I have with myself that I don't quite recognize. I hope that I can recognize them. And I hope that these brands can also recognize them and say, you know what? We've been doing black people dirty since our inception. Maybe it's time to try a bit different of a strategy. I'm going to finish up this makeup look and then hit you with some last comments. After making this whole video twice, and like talking through this with myself maybe 10 times, I still feel like I haven't done this topic any justice. I still feel like I could better express this to have you guys really understand and grapple with what I'm saying. But I want you to know that I did the best that I could. I don't know why I found this video so difficult to make. But I did. Like, getting this thought across is really hard for me. And if any of you guys have, like, similar opinions or something that you want to add to the conversation, please do. Because this was very hard for me. And I still feel like I didn't do it any justice. So if you want to add to this conversation, please feel free to. Link me in the description so that my video will kind of pop up with yours and people can continue to go down this rabbit hole and see what we're talking about. But this is just an interesting discovery that I made about bronzer that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm doing a challenge right now. I'm stating it. I wasn't going to, but I'm doing it now, where I'm uploading a video every single day for 30 days. Yep. So thank you guys so much for watching this. Please subscribe so that you can tune in tomorrow to see the next video. Again, if you would like to add to the conversation, feel free to leave comments and let me know what else I can say to better articulate this. Feel free to make your own video. Link me in the description so that we will show up together in searches so that people can hear more than one opinion on this. You guys can click over here to see some links to some of my other videos. I've said everything I need to say in this video. I really want to thank you for listening because I know that this was long, kind of a roundabout video, not really my most concise message. So thank you so much for listening. I'm really happy that you made it this far in the video. Hopefully you learned something. Yes, I do have a video entitled Black Lives Matter that you can check out to find out information about the Black Lives Matter movement, find links to things that you can do to help us with or without any money, and get involved in your community. And live responsibly during this time of there being a virus going around. I want to thank you guys again for watching. I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you hit subscribe so you can be here for it. And until then, toodaloo.